We have traveled across the UK to see how 16 classic regional foods are made. From Cornish Pasties to Worcestershire Sauce, sit back and enjoy as we meet the artisans, learn the processes and eat some of the best foods in the UK. Our first stop is London to see how Jellied Eel is made. We're in London, England, and today we're going to see how jellied eels are made. If you think that fish and chips is the most traditional fish dish that you can get here in London, think again. Jellied eels and London have a history that is hundreds of years old, going back to the times where the eel population was thriving in the River Thames. Nowadays, there are not as many eels as there were in the past, but the dish has stood the test of time. Let's go see how it's made. In their glory days, jellied eels were so popular that in the east end of London, competition among vendors was tough. Today, jellied eels can be found all over the UK at summer kiosks and racecourses, but there are only a handful of merchants who actually make them, all based in London. One of these is Barney's, an East End institution run by Mark Button, by his father Eddie before him, and now Mark's son has even gotten involved. Despite the challenges, Mark believes that jellied eels are far from being on the verge of disappearing.
The eel has become harder to get. We used to have eels every day from Whitstable and Southend-on-Sea. They used to come up to London, literally, 1,000 kilos a day would come into London of fresh Thames eels, Thames estuary eels. But they're no longer there, they disappeared. The price of eels today are dearer than salmon. When my father took over the business in the 1960s, the man that sold him the business said, "I don't think there's much left of it, see what you can do." And that was in 1965, which I know is 55 years ago, because that's when I was born. 55 years later, we're still going on. We've now got the third generation in the business.
The first step to making jellied eels is to clean the fish, take the guts out and cut the eels into portions.
These are the eels. I mean, they start off as live eels last night, but we have them stunned, so they are ready to work. Otherwise, if they were too movement, the boys couldn't work on them, it was too dangerous.
Oh, I see.
They're very sharp knives. They're fantastic to work, otherwise you'd never handle them. If it's a live eel, you'd pick them up and you'd be chasing them around the room.
Is it easier to clean than like a normal fish?
Well, these guys have been doing it for many years, so they find it easy, but even if you put a man who works with normal fish, flat fish, on this job, they would find it very hard. It's a different shaped fish, it's a different bone, it's the different pressures you put on the... You can see Simon at the end there, he uses a lot of strength in his arms and wrists to push it through.
All right, yeah, so they have different knives actually.
Yeah, this is like a filleting knife. And the guys here are cutting, using a cutting knife.
Oh, I see.
For every cut, there's hundreds and hundreds of cuts per day.
So they have to be sharp.
So they have to be very sharp. And they have to concentrate because you don't want to lose a digit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the finger is very close. I've read that the eels only have one bone.
With the jelly process, we leave the bone in and the customer eats around the bone.
Okay, so the part that you eat, is it just the beginning? Or you also eat
the flatter part is no good, so the pieces would start here, so from behind the gill, going back right the way through. So when you gut these pieces when they're cooked will be open, and these pieces when they're cooked will be round, which you'll see when I'll show you.
All right. So you know where they come from.
Some people they call these the horseshoe pieces. So it looks like a horseshoe, which is open. That's where the food's been removed out of the belly.
And you leave the skin as well.
Leave the skin on. Yeah.
And where do they come from? They don't come from the Thames, right?
No, we haven't had any English eels for many years now. We get eels from Holland. And also we get wild eels from Northern Ireland, from Loch Ness. Well, this time of year, because they've taken on a winter coat, they've been feeding well and they're storing body fat, so they're very good high fat content, which gives the eel a chance to migrate on a 6,000-7,000 mile journey, and they lose weight as they're swimming. But when they're a summer eel and they've been eating a lot of food, but they're not absorbing it, the meat will be thinner, but it will eat softer, because they're not storing it, so it's not storing the fuel.
So this one will have more body, it will be more meaty.
More meaty, yeah. At the moment, we're processing about 300 kilos a day.
Once all the eels have been cut in portions, we move to this other room where they will be boiled in herb-infused water.
So we flavour the water with a bouquet garni, which is mainly parsley and pimentos.
Oh, so this
which has got the
yeah, I can smell it.
smell the aroma.
And so the bag is never open; it stays closed in there just to flavour the water.
Just to flavour the water, then we remove that, and the water's flavoured. And we add the eels to it. Depending on the nature of the eel, this time of year they take a bit longer to cook, about 45-50 minutes.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, in the summer months it can be 30 minutes because the eel is softer because it's a summer eel. So explaining about the winter coat, they take a bit longer to cook to compensate to make the flesh softer. So we're slowly seeing the eels cook. The sediment is on the eel and that will be taken off and the fat's coming to the top as well. Like anything else you're skimming the fat off and it'll leave the juice clear for being decanted into the bowls.
It smells already like
you can
herby,
smell the parsley in the air, and because we've now got 4 pots on, the aroma here, I mean we haven't got smelly vision yet, but the aroma is quite pleasant.
Yeah, it doesn't smell like, I don't know, when you're doing a fish soup. No, not at all. It smells very fresh, like the parsley, as you said.
That's right, you can smell the herbs.
Yeah. And will you add any more ingredients, or that is that? Like
no, the only thing Simon will add to this is salt.
Salt?
Yeah, a bit nearer the end process rather than the beginning.
Wait, so how about the jelly? So you don't add any gelatin?
Yeah, we use the gelatin granule. Because of the commercial volume and setting them and travelling and shelf life, we have to use a granulated gelatin.
Okay, because I've read that the fish itself releases some...
If you was to cook one eel on its own, put it in the fridge overnight in the water you cook it in, it would jellyfy, but not to the point of sending it to Leigh-on-Sea or Clacton or Scotland or anywhere else. We've got to have shelf life now, so the gelatin powder suspends it with the salt and gives it a good shelf life.
Our jellied eel bowls are ready and they will now rest for about a day. Overnight, the gelatin will set and the eels will slowly float to the top.
So here we have yesterday's production, which are now jellied eels. They come in a bowl like this. We're ready for the main label with all the data on, which we've followed through on production.
And here they are.
But it's a sealed lid because we put them on hot, so the...
Oh!
And that is the
nice wiggle.
finished product there.
How many pieces of eels?
It's approximately 90 pieces.
Okay.
Approximately. It's done by eye and visual over the years. The person doing it gets a good eye to what's in there. If the eels are cut slightly bigger, there'll be slightly less pieces.
Yeah.
These are a good winter eel. There should be a good 85 to 90 pieces. Jellied eels. So this is the finished product.
And that's it, now it's nice and solid.
So now you've got the solid gelatin texture. A consumer would take the pieces out and now you've got the jelly.
Ooh. So normally do you eat it like this? Or
most people would eat them. I mean, we've just taken this out of the fridge, so it's going to be extremely cold.
Cold.
But it's better when the jelly becomes a little bit more room temperature and not too floppy. But eating wise, that's the piece of eel.
Whoa. And that's the bone there, huh?
That's the bone. That's left. You've got the saltiness in the jelly and you've got the texture of the fish. If you wanted to try this clean spoon there, it does get a bit messy with the gelatin. I'll leave you with that.
All right. Which one should I have? Should I have the one that's open or the one from
the open
back?
piece is good.
This one? Oh, there's a lot of gelatin.
You can knock some of the jelly off. Some people don't always like the flavour. And being it's cold, as I said, it's just come straight out of the fridge, so it's cold.
All right, let me get the bone. Right. It's good.
Yes?
I don't mind the jelly.
Get the saltiness in the jelly.
Yeah. I like the saltiness of the jelly with the fish.
Yeah.
I think they go very well together, The fish is nice, as you said.
The eel is
texture,
it's a lost thing. People don't always want to eat eel, but it's...
I mean, this gives it a bit more character, I think. Just the eel itself is like just
And you can imagine
fish,
this,
yeah.
you know, if you're out enjoying yourself and not in a factory environment, these are quite nice. And
Yeah, it's a
if you're having
nice
a drink
snack.
as well, it's a nice snack.
Yeah.
Or a meal even, you know.
So do you think it is better like this than with like vinegar or just
With some,
something on top?
I mean, we've got some non-brewed vinegar. If you'd like to try another piece with some vinegar on, would you like to try that?
Okay.
Yeah. So people would just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Yeah, it's good. It's more salty now. But yeah, you still get the freshness of the jelly and the fish. We're in St Agnes, Cornwall, and as you can see, I've already got my Cornish pasty right here. It's robust enough not to break, and actually being so portable is the reason why pasties are so beloved here in Cornwall. It was because miners would take them down the mine with them to have for lunch. The times have changed, the mines have closed, but the pasties have stayed. How did they do it? We're here to find out. The key to keeping a pasty together when it's filled to the brim is all about the pastry itself. This type of pastry is neither puff nor short crust. It's called rough crust. Made with flour, lard, butter, salt, and water, rough crust is kind of the best of both worlds. This pastry has a slight flakiness to it, which makes it more flexible than short crust. But since the batter and the dough are mixed together and not laminated, there aren't as many delicate layers as in a puff pastry. But don't worry, I didn't say we wouldn't get any layers at all. Some will still be there. This is because fresh dough is folded over with leftover pastry from the day before to create some air.
So you see there how the pastry's getting thinner, and we'll go back and forward until we get the right thickness.
Which is about this one.
Yes, for the pasty rounds themselves. So you create the folds in the pastry to create some air in the process to give that rough puff texture. We don't want to go to a full puff pastry because it wouldn't hold the contents very well. But just to make the pastry a bit lighter than a short crust pastry,
because that will break.
Which can feel very hard.
Is that like a custom tool that you have?
I will not tell you the code to the safe where this goes, because without this we can't make pasties. This is a 7.5 inch pasty ring.
Okay.
This is a medium pasty.
And what, you got it like handmade, just custom made?
Yes, yes.
For you.
And this is the large pasty ring. That's a 9 inch pasty ring.
Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like a tool you would use in an Olympic sport. What's
It could. Yes, it could. Yes, it could be curling. Couldn't it? Yeah.
Curling. Is it sharp?
Not particularly. We have had this one sharpened recently.
The person who sharpens this is somebody you trust.
Yes.
Because you have to give this away.
Yes. So yes, actually, he has to sign for it.
Our robust but flaky rough crust is ready to meet with its other half, the filling.
We use a very scientific measuring device called a cup.
All of the fillings are humble ingredients like potatoes and onions, and their usage goes hand in hand with the humble origins of the Cornish pasty itself. Each ingredient is also there to aid the portable nature of the pasty. Potatoes are waxy and keep their shape when baked. Swede, or turnip in Cornish, adds sweetness. I'm told using carrots is sacrilege. Onions and seasoning add flavor, and beef and butter provide the juices to create a nice gravy, as they say around here. At St Agnes Bakery, they use a cut of beef called rump skirt.
Rump skirt is the quality end of the skirt part of the animal. There's only a few kilograms per carcass. It's about twice the cost of the ordinary skirt, but what you get is a much more luxurious product. It's a lot leaner, it's a lot juicier, it's less gristly. And earlier you did mention the M word. We do not use mincemeat. That mincemeat, that have people who've not got out of the building alive for using the M word.
Bye, I'm leaving now. You may have noticed that ingredients are all added raw. This is a rule when making Cornish pasty. Why? Because they will cook all together in their own juices when the pasty is baked. And since the rough crust will hold them tight, nothing will get out until you give a bite. It's almost time to close the pasties, and there is a specific technique to do it. It's called crimping. Each crimper seals the edges of the pasty by pinching it at one side. Tradition calls for 20 crimps.
Each crimper's style is different. Each crimper's different. And when we're cooking the pastries, you can sort of tell, oh, that's a Jenny crimp, that's a Rebecca's crimp. Yeah. And also there's a difference between the right and left-handed people, because the right-handed people end up crimping on the left. The left-handed people end on the right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're right-handed.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And they all have a different style for ending the pasties too.
That's where I come in. No crimping experience whatsoever. Only walking in knowing that I'm right-handed. What's my style going to be?
Take the ends.
Both ends.
Yeah.
Oh, that's loaded. God, there's a lot of stuff
It's
in.
okay. And then
Just try and close it.
Close the other end, yeah.
Okay. Oh God, it's falling
That's
off the
all right,
side.
it's okay. Just hold it up. Pull it over,
Yeah.
and then you keep pulling it over as you go along.
God. Alright. So like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That looks nice, actually. It's better than mine.
Oh. Who would have said?
And then you just keep going.
Oh yeah,
and
that's not
pulling it
looking that
over.
as nice. Okay. You're not saying anything, so it means I'm not doing it right.
No, it's fine.
Oh.
It's just we do it that way, and you're kind of doing it backwards
Really? Okay.
because we stand like this.
There you
That's
go.
it.
Oh, okay. I always start off well, and then I kind of just get lost along the way. It's alright. So he has different personalities. I'm gonna pose with my honourable creation. So why do you do a side crimp then?
So the original Cornish pasty, like back in the many years ago, when the
Hundreds of
miners
years
were
ago.
working in the mines,
Yeah.
was half sweet,
Oh.
maybe jam, and half veg.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
Yeah.
they used to take them down the mines with them, and because the hands were dirty, they would hold this
They
to
all the
eat
crimp.
the pasty,
Yeah.
and then leave
Oh.
that bit.
Nice and crimped, the pasties are finished with a glaze of oat milk and cow's milk for extra crunch. Cornish pasties bake slowly for about 1 hour to maximize the flavors coming together.
The bakery's been here since 1907, and there's actually 2 mine shafts directly under the bakery building itself.
Oh, really? Wow.
So it's not.
So it has been built on top of the
Yes,
shaft.
so it's been built on top of 2 mine shafts.
Oh. All right, should we have a go?
Okay. Cheers to you.
So which way you eat it?
Whichever way fits in your mouth. As they used to say before they called the men who were working the mines to let them know the pasties were ready, oggy, oggy, oggy.
I really like this pastry. It's nice and soft actually on the inside, but flaky on the outside.
That's right.
Yeah. Nice hint of pepper there. The meat is very good. Yeah, that definitely doesn't taste like the M word. Doesn't taste like mincemeat.
No, we don't use the M word.
How long would you wait to eat them?
Personally, I prefer a pasty that's been out of the oven for about 45 minutes.
Yeah?
They'll stay warm for ages, and I like it so there's just a bit of warmth coming through, not too hot. You get all the flavour and the depth of the flavour then. So when you take your pasty, make sure it's been out of the oven for about 45 minutes.
The queen of afternoon tea served with scones and strawberry jam, Clotted Cream is sometimes confused with butter for its thick, rich texture. While it contains some butter fat, a lot of it actually, Clotted Cream isn't churned as butter would be. Instead, its butter fat is separated slowly, following a precise, lengthy process that here in Cornwall has been passed down over generations. We're in Rouen Minor, Cornwall, and today we're going to find out how Clotted Cream is made. I can't wait to taste it. Let's go see how it's made. Just by looking at it, it has the consistency of ice cream. It looks a bit like ice cream.
It does.
The texture
yeah, it
of
does.
butter.
Yeah.
And the taste of cream.
Cream,
Of like,
yeah.
milk cream.
Yes, yes.
So
yeah.
it's really like these 3 things together.
And all come from milk. Very clever product, milk.
Yeah.
It is.
And how did that clever milk turn into such a product? Well, Clotted Cream starts with fresh milk that is pasteurized at 63 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. This temperature is ideal to preserve its creamy flavor without burning it. It is then cooled down to no more than 36 degrees to force the milk to separate into fat and liquid. The next step is to pour it into the separator, which skims the cream from the milk.
So how much milk are you putting here in the separator?
That'll be 35 litres of whole milk gone in. It's usually 1 litre of cream to 12 litres of milk.
Oh, all right.
That's
really small.
Yeah.
But you still want to make something out of it.
Yeah, it is the cream of the crop, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
literally. The best part of it. It's not easy to get it right.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I think it's the temperature, you know, of when you process the milk as well, to make sure you actually start separating it at the right temperature, the right consistency of cream. My uncle used to sell his own cream, and he taught me that if the cream will stick to your thumb, that's the right consistency. If it falls off, it's not going to be any good.
It's not good, because it means there's still a little bit of milk in
that's
there.
right, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
So you don't want any
You'll
of
be
that.
you'll be working with me in a minute.
Oh, this is your test. Oh, it looks like nail polish.
That's good.
The separation is done twice to get the richest cream possible. Once the separator is off, Claire takes it apart to explain to me how it works. Here you can see a series of discs. When the machine is on, they spin and push the skim milk through these holes, while the cream, which is heavier, flows to the bottom.
As each particle of milk goes through, these spin at such a rate, each one of them. The cream, yeah, there's loads. They all are separated, coming off like that. We obviously take them off every time we use them. But there's a lot of fat as well that's kept in here.
Oh,
it's probably really good for your skin. It's like a moisturiser.
The fresh cream is then poured into little pots. By skimming the milk twice, what we've got is double cream. To become clotted cream, it will need to be left to set for 12 hours in the fridge. During this time, the thickest part of the cream rises to the surface, creating clots.
Which will make it clotted cream.
Oh, I see. So that's why it's called
you
clotted
cook
cream.
the clots, yeah, you cook the clots, and the cream underneath should be runny compared to the top, so you have that lovely crust.
Oh, I see. So this is the way to go, and it is a very lengthy process.
It is, yes, definitely. It's well worth waiting for.
Look nice and bubbly.
They do, yeah.
After spending the night in the fridge, the pots are ready to be cooked. Claire tells me she's found the perfect temperature and baking time to be 85 degrees Celsius for 1 hour and 30 minutes. This allows her to give the cream a nice crust without overcooking it.
Oh,
And what you want is that lovely crust.
yeah, it has.
You see it
crust.
crack in there, and then
It's runny.
it's just about right to put on that lovely scone.
Oh,
Make sure you have the crust on top. This is a good consistency because you've got the underneath isn't too runny. It won't run off your scone.
yeah.
Your teeth will sink right into it.
Okay, it's my turn now. I'm not gonna get a spoon as big as yours. You
Keep
get
the crust.
less than
Make sure.
that.
There you go.
Oh. Cheers.
Cheers.
That
That's
was felt it.
Yeah, you do feel it.
Yeah.
You definitely need a scone to go
You're
with it.
not-
you need
yeah,
to
you're
take.
not supposed to eat
you're
it
not
like
really
that.
meant to eat it on its own.
Unfortunately, Claire had to run to bottle the rest of the fresh milk of the day. So I sat down with Margaret, the owner of the farm, to enjoy clotted cream the most traditional way possible, in an afternoon tea, or cream tea as it's called here in Cornwall. The clotted cream is paired with strawberry jam and scones that Margaret herself made with some leftover buttermilk. While spreading cream and jam on your scone may look like the most natural thing, the order in which you do it has long been the subject of one of the biggest culinary debates in the UK.
Which way should I start? Because I know here there are a lot of rules on how to approach this. And I could be persecuted if I put one thing before the other.
Have your scone, and then in Cornwall you always put some jam on it first.
Okay, so first the jam. All right.
Yes.
Why would you put the jam first and the cream last?
Well, it's what we've always done it here. But I think if you put the jam in and you put as much cream on as you like, can't you? It is nice. Have a nice big one.
That's enough, huh? The whole thing?
Yes, at least that much.
At least. Oh gosh. That's
Yeah.
It's quite a lot, huh? Very good, this cream.
Nice.
Oh, I can see why you put this for last, because it's really what stays there in your mouth. You know, when you have it and you just have it on the top of your lips. Very, very good. I like the scones as well. Homemade
Scone.
by you. Yeah, I really like them. Nice and soft and crumbly in the core.
Good. Everything together is so nice.
Yeah, it's true.
Suffolk black ham gets this black crust from its curing process, which is like no other, using molasses, brown sugar and a local black porter. Soaking the ham in this sweet marinade doesn't just turn it black, it helps balance the flavor and break away from those more salty flavors of hams that are dry cured only using salt. The whole process takes 10 weeks, in which the ham is first dry cured, then marinated and then smoked. But it's all worth it. And here, Suffolk, England, is where this has been happening for over 200 years. How much beer is this? Like, this is quite a huge barrel.
This is 39.5 litres of black porter beer.
Okay.
It's like a stout, it's like a Guinness. And this is the basis for our black hams.
All right, and is this a local beer, right?
This is a local beer from Nethergate Brewery in Clare, which is an hour and 20 minutes from here.
As Mark releases the pressure in the barrel, the porter drains out into a cooker. Here is where we will make enough marinade to soak 40 hams.
So maybe you want to dip your finger in there and just try it.
Can I go? Yeah. Ooh. Nice. Yeah, it's quite a good beer. Can I have a glass?
The whole point of the marinade is that the marinade gets into the gammons. It adds depth, adds flavour. During the period of marination, the muscles are softened by the beer. So if you sit in the bath for half an hour and you look at your fingers, they sort of dry out and wrinkle.
Yeah.
Well, this is in the bath for 6 weeks.
The beer first cooks on its own for 3 hours at 95 degrees Celsius. Then Mark adds sugar and molasses to the marinade. Yeah, there's quite a lot of sugar. This looks like we're making cake.
It smells just like, yeah.
So why is this recipe like so sweet?
It goes back a long way. I think it's all part of adding flavour to meat when meat was very salty. Because when you think about it, there was no refrigeration back in the 1800s, 1900s, or very little. And you wanted to preserve your meat, and the way to preserve it was with salt. But also the salt, it's not particularly pleasant to eat a lot of salt. So this was a way of dispersing the salt.
Oh, sticky.
Pure grade molasses, much blacker than you.
Woo!
As you can see, this is part of the ingredient for black ham.
Dance.
It also being sweet adds not overly sweetness to the ham. It's quite a strong flavour.
It's giving me some Christmas vibes. Sugar mixing. Look at that. It's a fountain. In total, each marinade contains almost 40 kilos of brown sugar and molasses. Once the marinade is ready, it is left to cool down for a day. In the meantime, Mark strings the gammons, which have already been cured with natural salt, black pepper and fennel seed.
This is the leg of a free-range pig. This is around 11 kilos in weight. So this is just the rear leg of the pig, nothing else. This is ham, not sham. Do you want to hold that?
11 kilos. Okay, that's like a kettlebell.
It's quite heavy. Here you have 20 gammons on the bone. This has been in here for a week so far.
It has lost a little bit in terms of size.
As you can see, it is gaining colour, taste, flavour straight away. I turn them twice a week. I don't go to the gym, I lift ham and bacon.
Oh.
But by turning them, you get rid of the white patches and you get an even distribution of flavour throughout the ham. Because as you can see, it's quite dense meat, and where they sit on top of each other, they don't get that flavour.
So this is like a very long marinating process, much longer than like other curing processes.
There's a nice colour already there, you see?
Yeah, and the black starts to come out.
Hiya.
Okay, I can't do it.
The whole room smells quite strong. It's like a bit tangy.
You're smelling the beer?
Yeah.
It's yeasty.
Yeah, yeasty.
The meat soaks in the marinade for 6 weeks. As the marinade penetrates the meat, the skin gets darker. But for all flavors to really come together, we need a final touch: smoking. At Emmet's, the hams are cold smoked, which means that the temperature of the smokehouse is no more than 48 degrees Celsius. Hotter and they will cook.
This is our original smokehouse. We still have the original door. Dates from around 1820s, 200 years old.
So how long does the meat stay in there for?
Well, I hang it in there and I let it drip initially because obviously it's been in the marinade.
Yeah.
I then put on the floor in the well the actual beech flour itself, and it'll burn anything up to 2 days. The smoking is not part of the preservation, the smoking is part of the flavour. The smoke, like the cure, like the marinade, penetrates the muscle of the meat. This is not an ejection of smoke, this is totally natural. So here again, we have ham, not sham.
I really need to get this
You're gonna
t-shirt.
remember that one, yeah. So this is one of our black hams. It's beautiful, look at it.
Mark also makes black off-the-bone ham and bacon.
Secret treasure chest.
So these have also been smoked.
Ah, smells good this one, eh?
After the smoking, customers can choose to get a cooked or uncooked ham. The hams sold at the shop are boiled, but they can also be roasted in the oven.
Oh, ooh. It has the same smell of the other room.
As you can see, they're smaller now. When they're off the bone, they lose, here again, about 2 to 3 kilos. And so they cook down to around 5.7, 5.8, 6 kilos.
So actually the black is only the skin, outside skin.
Black is the skin, but as you can see, the moisture gets into the meat, the flavor gets into the meat, the color gets into the meat.
Yeah.
It also becomes slightly fibrous, and this is where there's immense flavor. There are people who don't like crust on toast or crust on bread, but that's where the flavor is.
Black hams are a local favorite. Emmet's even held a royal warrant for 36 years. It means that the royal family had black ham on their menu for over 3 decades. But unfortunately, my humble opinion is all you've got today.
Wow, nice. That's the flavor.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. It's very sweet and tasty, you were saying. There's a good balance between sweet and salty.
So you can see it becomes fibrous. It's delicious though.
There's still a little bit of jelly, is it the sugar, right?
This is
the
the jelly,
marinade. Yeah.
There's a nice bit of jelly in the middle there where the bone was. But as you get more towards the back, you get more and more fat and even more flavor because of the skin area here.
Yeah. So I have tried jellied eels, but so this is jellied ham.
It's unique to Emmet's. As I said before, it's ham, not sham.
We're in Bury, Lancashire, England, and we're about to visit a black pudding company. Black pudding is that one item in an English breakfast plate that you either love or hate. Why? Because it has blood in it. But it is also that one item that has the most history, especially here in Lancashire, which is known for being the county that brought it to fame. So it's time to see how it's made. Let's go. In Bury, we met with Richard Morris, production director at the Bury Black Pudding Company. His grandfather was a butcher, and it is his black pudding recipe that the company uses today.
People have this idea of black puddings, it's all bits of animals and stuff. There's no meat in the black pudding. There's blood in the black pudding, but there's no meat, it's cereal based.
Black pudding starts with a dry mix of pig blood, seasoning, rusk and oatmeal. And when we say dry, we mean this.
Well,
Seriously?
Yeah, you'd never guess. It's actually a dried blood, so if you smell that, what would you...
It just smells like herbs.
Yeah,
it smells like the seasoning.
Yeah, the seasoning.
There's no blood.
No.
Any blood.
No,
at all.
it's a nice aroma, and we use dry blood because it's developed to certain parameters, so it's very safe, food safe.
What is the difference with like liquid blood?
It's much more consistent. Using fresh blood, that can change with different animals, what they've been fed on. So this is a very consistent product which fits what we do. We also have rusk then, which is breadcrumbed flour used heavily in manufacture of sausage. That's what gives sausage a fluffy texture.
Oh, I see.
And we also have oatmeal as well. So oatmeal that's been ground, so it's a fine oatmeal, and that again if you added water to that, it would go a bit stiffer. So the two together make a nice texture.
Oh
So
yeah,
that-
because they complement each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think heavily in England, especially north of England, anything that's got lumps in it, you got to bite 2 or 3 times. They call it gristle round here. Chorizo and that sort of sausage are quite firm. That's more European. Around here, especially north of England, it needs to be soft and very palatable.
Okay,
We'll eat loads
so
of
that
it
is
then.
a taste,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just regional things. Yeah,
Regional
yeah.
taste.
Another 2 ingredients are barley and fat. Unlike the rusk, oatmeal and blood, they will be cooked before being added to the dry mix.
The barley itself comes in loose like this. When we cook it up in these, leave room for it,
Nice.
it will swell up to about 3-4 times the size.
Oh wow, looks like a Christmas sock.
Yeah.
It does.
This is pork fat, so if you think of a pork chop, where the meat is, the white piece of fat there, this comes in from Denmark, where we have fatter pigs. In England, the fat's like this, so we don't have fat pigs. So this white piece of fat comes in strips, which we have here.
Oh wow. I didn't even notice
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It looks like textile.
That's
you know?
it, yeah, so we got a strip there.
No, it doesn't look like meat.
And then this goes through, this is then diced.
Oh.
So this is the high quality, there is no lean meat on this at all. So we're just after the fat.
And this
So-
one is going to be cooked. Yeah.
Yeah, we dice it on a machine. We wait into the stockinette again. So we, from
Yeah,
here,
another sock.
we take it up from there and we pop it into there.
Here we go. And this one is going to shrink, or?
Yes, it will just shrink slightly as it starts to give the moisture out of it and the flavour. The barley expands, this just reduces slightly. Yeah.
And one net is for one
Into a
batch.
mix, there's 4 nets go into a mix.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm giving you my recipe right now.
Okay. Well, might have to write this down.
Yes, no, don't do that.
Barley and fat are cooked for 1 hour. Meanwhile, onion and water are mixed in this giant container. When ready, they will be joined by the dry mix containing blood, oatmeal and rusk.
And then there's a motor on here. Basically, it will just, it's like when you whisk something up, but this does it at 4,500 revs. So it just whisks it up really quick, and basically you rehydrate the product so you've got like a gravy consistency. With the
Okay.
dry bloods in it, the seasoning, the rust, the oatmeal, the flour, the onions, and you've got your base mix there.
Okay. So wait, this one is the barley that you were showing me earlier.
Yeah.
Wow, and it's grown so much in size, you were right.
Yeah, this is
like,
the barley you saw previously. If I pick one up, you'll see exactly the same. From there, see how it's swollen up. Now that's
Yeah.
cooked perfectly.
So this one is about, it was like 2.5 kilos, and
yeah,
now
it's about 10 kilos now.
Wow.
We weight check it, so it's right. If that was overcooked, it'd be 11, 12 kilos, we wouldn't use that.
So Christmas sock before Christmas and Christmas sock after.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Wow, it's like a gym test.
I know, I can see you with a couple.
I'm shaking.
And you can do like a lunge thing, no?
Yeah.
So I see something else in here though, there's not just barley.
But this is fat, diced fats that we showed you earlier. Again, this has been cooked up. If you notice, it's not swollen up.
Yeah.
It's just cooked out and it actually loses the bits. We only use, in our products, only 3% fat, and those are the actual small white pieces you see in the end product. If you don't want the fat, don't eat the small pieces and you're on 0% fat.
So you can really skip it.
Yeah, exactly.
Barley and fat are then added into the mix. Fat is mixed gently, not at high shear, to not break the dices. The mix is now ready.
So brown.
Yeah, it's like chocolate.
Yeah, it does look like chocolate.
Yeah,
mousse, to be honest.
Tastes a bit different to chocolate, but yeah, it's not bright red or anything like that. People associate it with blood. It's a cereal mix with a blood base, so
Okay.
it's a chocolatey, velvety sort of touch.
But the color comes from the dried blood.
Yeah, it
Like,
does.
this
Yeah,
is-
yeah.
this is what
That's
gives
that,
it
that's
colour.
the main part of it.
The mix is stuffed in a natural casing made of beef intestine.
That is super quick.
So that's the intestine that's been filled out with a mix. This is a portioning control machine, like you see with sausage fillers.
Yeah.
And what it's actually doing, it's spinning the product. So it's doing that so quick.
Oh, okay.
You see from there,
So that you can portion it.
and that's one portion that we
Yeah.
then link into a black pudding.
There you go. Nice. And it's always this shape, right?
It's
you
always
can't
this
have
shape.
it as a just a
And you
straight
can
of
see with the
sausage.
linking, we tie that together with string there, and then there, and then there.
Okay.
And we use the string to tie it up. So one's just been done here.
Let's see. Oh, so you have a nice
So you've been
group, yeah.
they're tied up, all the same weight, right through, and they're ready for cooking.
Nice black color, no?
Yeah. You will see now when it goes in, it's a greyish look, and then it goes black after cooking.
After cooking.
And then it's
All
the
right.
name black pudding. So that's a very traditional process that we still teach that to this day. A 100-year-old process, maybe longer. It's tied together. The touch is smooth.
Wow. Yeah, that is very smooth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very smooth.
Oh, honestly, there is no grains at all.
No.
It's just like when you pass your
Silky,
your
yeah.
hands through your hair.
Yeah, it's
Something
silky,
like that.
silky smooth.
Super
Yeah,
smooth.
yeah,
That
super
is.
smooth,
What about the casing? Are you
The
supposed to eat
casing
it?
can be eaten, it is edible, it's natural. Personally, I don't. I take it off because it's quite thick. It's probably the hardest to chew in the product. I like a nice, soft, palatable product. Yeah.
So you can easily just peel it off.
You can easily peel it off, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right?
User friendly.
Then the black puddings are cooked in water for about 1.5 hours.
Oh, so they go in one by one.
Yeah. If you put them in one go, basically that has the core temperature. If you put them individual, you have to get in the water around it. So we have 3 or 4 minutes allowed in the cooking time to get the water around the product. The
Oh,
pudding,
yeah.
it's called a pudding because it's cooked immersed in water. Hence the name.
They're black now.
Yeah, and as the air gets to them, so as they cool off, they go blacker and blacker. They get down to a temperature of about 40 degrees in about 10 minutes, and then we put them onto a rack to cool. 2 or 3 hours later, we're ready to pack them. So these are the black puddings that have been cooled. We just take them off the rack here, put them on the table, and then the staff here will cut the black puddings, cut the string off, and so they come in here, so they're in single black puddings.
Can I try?
Yeah, just lift it up.
Where do you lift it up?
You
Just
best
from...
lift it with both hands. Okay. You lift it.
Oh, it has the texture of like a date.
Yeah. You got them?
Wow. Okay.
There you go.
Oh, the color has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
No?
So they've gone slightly brown. They were very black to begin with, but it's just the cooling process.
Just looks like my grandma's chocolate salami.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I can't really get my head around the fact that it's not chocolate.
I know.
So how do locals enjoy their black puddings? We took a trip to the Bury Black Pudding Company's stall at Bury Market to find out.
So here at Bury Market, you can actually just get black pudding as a takeaway food and have it.
Yeah, you have been able to for years and years. You can go away with a nice hot black pudding with a bit of mustard on, or tomato sauce, brown sauce. You can either have it just on its own, or you can take it away on a bap, bread roll.
Oh, okay, nice. So how long have you been here at the Bury Market?
I've been here since I was 12 years old, so 38 years.
Wow.
I came as a Saturday girl working for a farmer who had the stall. My mum works on the stall, my nephews work on the stall. So some of the stalls opposite, they've been here for years, so it's like a family.
Wow. What does black pudding mean to Bury, especially? Because it is used like all over England, but here specifically there is quite a strong black pudding like feeling and culture.
Yeah,
no?
the story goes that the black pudding originated in Europe, and the monks came over to England and settled in Bury. So it's always traditionally been known as the capital of black pudding.
Oh, the season is so good. It adds flavor, but it doesn't overpower the rest.
Yeah.
Texture is well and nice and creamy. I would never say that there is blood in here. If I were to look at this, I would probably think it's just chocolate mousse. So it's
Yeah,
just a
chocolate cake.
sausage.
Yeah, often when we're sampling, some of the children think it's chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Cheddar Cheese is named after a small village in the West Country in England. We're here to watch the traditional method of making it and find out why cheesemakers restarted the centuries-old tradition of storing it in caves. The Cheddar Gorge Cheese Company is the only dairy in this village, so we're about to see the real deal. About 333,000 tonnes of cheddar are produced in the UK per year. To get the official Protected Designation of Origin label, West Country Farmhouse Cheddar, the cheese has to be made in one of the 4 counties: Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, Dorset. The cheese must be made from milk from grazing herds no more than 30 miles from the farm. It has to be made from a traditional recipe. The curds need to be turned by hand, and it must be aged to a minimum of 9 months. The earliest record of cheddar anywhere is at Cheddar in Somerset in 1170. The land around this village has been at the heart of English cheese making since the 15th century. Today, as many cheddar producers have upscaled and required more land, there is only one traditional cheesemaker left in the village. The Cheddar Gorge Cheese Company produces 60 tonnes of cheese each year.
But certainly down here you have the Somerset levels, and then you have the top of the Cheddar Gorge, and each year you would get a lot of water coming down from the gorge, bringing a lot of silt, which really made the pastures verdant and very, very nutritious.
In the morning, 2,000 litres of milk is delivered from a farm 4 miles away. It takes around 10 litres of milk to make 1 kilogram of cheddar. The milk is agitated, which mixes the fat evenly through the milk. Some farmhouse producers use pasteurised milk, but here it's raw milk.
We use it unpasteurised. We need to know that the quality of the milk and the safety is fine. The farm that we get it from has Friesian, Holstein Friesians, British Friesians.
A vegetarian replacement for rennet is then added, which sets the milk into a junket. This is cut to form curds and whey. The curds and whey are heated to about 40 degrees Celsius to make the curds solid. This influences the moisture level in the finished product. Cheeses like Gorgonzola and mozzarella have a lot of moisture in them, so they go off very quickly, whereas Parmesan has little moisture, so lasts for a long time. Cheddar is somewhere in the middle, around 40%. The starter cultures develop and multiply. The whey is drained away. Next, the all-important cheddaring process, where the curds, now having the texture of chicken breasts, are turned and cut.
What cheddaring does is it squeezes the curd and forces more whey out of it. And gradually it'll get drier and drier, and the texture changes very quickly.
The curd is salted by hand to preserve it, and milled into small chips. It's pressed into a 25 kilogram mould and left overnight. In the morning, it's dipped in hot water to smooth the edge of the cheese and remove the imprint of the cloth. It's then treated with a vegetarian-based substance. The use of cheesecloth is a vital way of allowing the cheese to gradually dry and develop a rind. The only thing that identifies it is a tag that states the date of production and the weight of the cheese. The mellow, mature and vintage cheddars are all stored on site, where they are turned, and the free mould is vacuumed away. The cave mature variety is carried into the famous Goths Cave in the Mendip Hills. The constant temperature and humidity, nearly 98%, provide perfect conditions in which to mature cloth-bound cheese. The moisture content is a critical component, and it ensures the cultures and enzymes move on more quickly, producing a more complex flavour. It takes on the natural yeast and mould from the atmosphere in the cave, leading to an earthy flavour. The cheese's strength is defined by the length of the aging. For mellow cheddar, it's 4 to 6 months. Mature, 10 to 12 months. And vintage, 20 to 24 months. Cave matured should have less of a bite at 12 months old. We tried some out to see if there's a taste difference between the maturations.
The first one I'm going to have a little bite of is the cave matured cheddar. It's really creamy. It almost has the consistency of quite a medium mild cheddar. You can tell the difference of the rinds here. So I've got the cave aged one, which has sort of like that really damp, quite dark colour on the rind of it. And then I've got the vintage one, which is just a little bit lighter. Okay, now let's try some of this. Wow, the flavour of that is incredible. It has such a kick to it and such a bite. Immediately when you cut into vintage cheddar, you want there to be almost a flakiness to it, and that's exactly what this has got.
The company is the first one in recent memory to reintroduce cheddar cheese back into a natural cave environment to mature. The PDO label was set up to protect the industry from non-genuine products. So why did the Cheddar Gorge Cheese Company opt out of it?
Some years ago we had PDO status for our cheese, but we deliberately opted out of it. So with the PDO you can make it from pasteurised milk. We make all ours from unpasteurised. With the PDO you can mature it in plastic. We mature ours in cloth, and we are still doing the things that would enable us to qualify for PDO. What we've just done is go on a little bit further, quite a lot further.
We're in Edinburgh, Scotland, and we're about to visit Max Sween, a third-generation family-run haggis producer. What we're about to see is a traditional haggis, which is encased in an animal tripe and stuffed with meat, spices, salt, and a few more ingredients. So let's go and find out which ones.
I've always been curious about haggis, and finally I get the chance to travel to Scotland to find out how it's made and why it matters so much to Scots. Leading me in this journey is James Maxween, who has turned his grandfather's butcher shop in Edinburgh into one of the most successful haggis companies in the UK.
Being a boy in a family business, I never get tired of eating haggis. From when I was old enough to understand what my dad did to, 40 plus years later, I love haggis. I love haggis.
There is no steadfast rule as to what specific animal has to go into haggis. At Maxween, the base is lamb lungs and beef fat.
I'm the third generation managing director of McSween's. We're still using that same recipe that we started with in 1953. You can have a pork haggis, you can have lamb and beef, you could have a lamb, beef and pork. There's some people make venison haggis. We've made venison haggis in the past. But as long as this business has been making haggis, we have always made lamb and beef recipe.
How many lungs are there in?
Oh, hundreds. They've been, it's a big block of meat that we guillotine, but there's hundreds.
Okay. And how many haggis are these going to make?
By the time Connor's lifted everything for this batch, it will make 2,000 puddings or 4,000 portions.
Each pudding is meant to serve 2 to 3 people, so that is about 2 portions per pudding.
It looks like marble.
Yeah, it's like
It looks like Tuscan marble.
Travertine.
Oh.
Pink travertine.
Yeah.
Some manufacturers mince a lot of their meat raw and then they cook it in the casing. We don't do it like that.
Okay.
We cook our lungs. Others, some don't.
Oh.
So cooking it makes our haggis light and fluffy. So we.
Smells like liver, actually.
Yeah, well, it will smell like it. It doesn't taste like it.
And lungs they are safe to eat, I guess. But
yeah.
Why is it that they're banned in some countries?
According to Canada and America, they think that you're going to contract tuberculosis pretty much every butcher in Scotland will make haggis. We eat a huge amount of haggis in Scotland. Everybody's okay. It's really well cooked, you know. So we cook the lungs. They then get, once they've been mixed with all the other ingredients, it goes into the casing. It gets cooked again, and then for the consumer to eat it, it gets cooked again. It's very safe.
What James is referring to is a 1971 US ban on imported animal lungs that is still in place today. But while haggis cannot be imported from Scotland, there are still some local producers feeding those hungry for haggis across the pond. Lungs are cooked for about 2 hours before being mixed with onions and salt. Meanwhile, in this other room, spices and oatmeal are measured to then be blended together with gravy and the minced meat. They wouldn't share the full list of spices, but from what we can tell, there may be nutmeg, mace and coriander.
It's really very simple.
Yeah, it is actually. It's just a lot of ingredients. You know,
a lot of ingredients. It's just like making a hot sausage or a you know, salami.
But you would never like just miss out on any of these ingredients.
Oh, you know, no, you wouldn't.
If you make haggis without like spices, then
it would, haggis needs spice.
Now it's time to encase the haggis. This is done with beef intestine.
So this is intestine you use?
Yeah, this is beef intestine. This is what we call a large bung or the large intestine. There's this end here is the equivalent of your appendix.
Okay.
So it's that part of the gut. And then along here there's a small hole.
Where is that?
There it's there. And that's where the large intestine joins the small intestine.
Okay.
All these casings you would see being used for mortadella, which is what this casing's for, or salami or chorizo. The small intestine is typically used for salamis for a narrower caliber, but for haggis, that's the casing that we use.
Haggis is quite wide. So
haggis is very wide.
Okay.
These are 454 gram haggis today, but we do make haggis that are 2.3 kilos, so they feed 10 people, and they're very wide and very long.
And is there a difference in taste as well, you know, at the end?
Yes, very good question. Yeah, like real cheese, mature cheese, there is a flavour that comes off the casing that gives it a more traditional flavour.
Okay.
It's a more mature flavour.
The freshly made puddings are punched to let out the air as they cook. They will stay in the oven for about an hour and cook at 100 degrees Celsius.
Oh, wow. Look at that. There's some yellow water coming out. Is this for the spices?
Oh no, that's the fat.
Oh, okay. So it's not water?
No. Well, some of it's water and some of it's fat.
Okay, wow.
Because the casing's porous, it's just some of the fat, the moisture within the haggis seeping through. So.
Yeah, of course there is fat. You know, you should save it. You should make it like foie gras or something.
All the flavours have been bound together through the cooking process. So you've got the lamb meat, the beef meat, the oatmeal, the seasoning, the spices, the salt. And then once it's now been filled into the casing's now shrunk through the cooking process.
It has shrunk so much. They just come back like half the size.
The haggis need about 4 hours to cool down before going to get vacuum packed.
But these are not ready to be eaten yet, because they need to be heated up again after they're in the bags.
That's what the consumer would do.
All right.
But in the old days, when we used to run the butcher shop, back when my grandfather was running the business, if there was ever a burst haggis, the guys would take it away and eat it, because it's right now the haggis at this stage is so tasty.
Is it?
Oh, it's fresh and succulent and juicy.
Oh no! So we're losing out so much just by cooking it afterwards.
No, you have it the same thing again when you heat it. But right now, there's nothing beats the taste of fresh haggis, and the recipe has only changed once in 67 years. We changed the blend of oatmeal. My father received a letter from a very well-renowned food critic called Derek Cooper, and he said, "John, I think your haggis is fantastic, but I think you could improve it. You might want to consider changing the blend of oatmeal." And Dad did. Sent a haggis back to Derek, and Derek replied, going, "Perfection." And we've never changed it since. Haggis isn't Scottish. Haggis, in one way or another, exists in every culture around the world. So a salami is a bit like a haggis. Mocia is a bit like a haggis. Feijoada in a stew in Brazil is a bit like a haggis. A haggis is a dish made with the bits and pieces that aren't whole muscle meat. So it's the original boil in the bag, you know, because you're just using all these bits and pieces, and you make something that's very tasty and very affordable.
James isn't kidding about it being in almost every culture. In Czech cuisine they have vitrenice, in Romanian cuisine they have toba, andouillette in France. They're all made from bits and pieces of animal meat and encased to boil. Not only they are tasty, but they're also an economical way to use as much of the animal as possible. Despite the style of cooking being everywhere, Scots have a unique passion for haggis. There is even one night a year devoted to haggis, which acts as a sort of unofficial national holiday. It's called Burns Night and is named after Robert Burns, Scotland's national poet. A Burns supper traditionally kicks off with an address to the haggis. To show you how seriously they take it, I'm going to play James reciting the entire poem, while I also show you a collection of people across Scotland acting it out. Okay, take it away, James.
So, to a haggis by Robert Burns. Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain a' the puddin' race, aboon them all ye tak your place.
Ten stripe per thern, well are ye worthy o' a grace as lang's my arm. The growing treasure, there ye full.
Your hardies, like a distant hill.
Your pin would help to mend a mill in time o' need.
And through your pores the dews distill.
Like amber beat.
His knife, see rustic labour dicht.
And cut ye up with ready slight.
Drenching your gushing entrails, brickly ony ditch.
And then, oh, what a glorious sight. Warm, reeking, rich. Then horn for horn,
they stretch and strive.
You'll tack the hindmost on they drive, till their wheels
swalled kites belive are bent.
Like drums, an old big man is like to ride.
Bethank it hums.
Is there the hour his French a ragout?
A rolio, 'twould staw a sou.
Or fricassee would mak her spew.
We perfect skinner.
Let's do with sneering scorn for you.
On sick a dinner. Poor deal, see him o' his trash.
As feckless as a withered rash.
His spindle shanked gid whiplash.
His knee and net, through bloody Flanders fields to dash.
Oh, how unfit. But mark the rustic, haggis fed.
The trembling earth resounds his tread.
Clapping his wally neva blade, he'll mak it whistle, and leagues the names and heeds'll sned like taps o' thistle.
Ye poors,
whack mak mankind your care, and dish them out their billow fare.
All Scotland wants nae skinking ware
that jops and luggies.
But if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis.
The defining qualities of Cornish cheese are a dark green rind and a candid white mold. The rind actually comes from these leaves, called stinging nettles, which are brushed on by hand, one by one. The nettles give the cheese a fresh, creamy taste with hints of herbs, seaweed and lemon. Cornish yarg may not be as popular as other English cheeses like Stilton or traditional cheddar, but it's just as rare because it can only be made in one place. We're in the hedgerows of Pontonook, Cornwall, and these right here are the nettle leaves that are used to wrap Cornish yarg. Imagine there are only 5 people in the whole world that know how to properly wrap a Cornish yarg. So how did this recipe even come about? Well, it was actually found randomly in a book about 400 years ago. Fascinating, isn't it? Well, I'm certainly intrigued. So it's time for us to go and find out more. There's only one dairy in the world that makes this cheese, Liner Dairies in the heart of Cornwall. Like all cheeses, it all starts here, with fresh milk, rennet, and in this case, cultures. You see these beautiful white molds around the cheese? That's what the cultures will trigger in the aging process later on.
You need to disperse the whey bit by bit gently. If you take the whey off too quickly, you won't leave enough behind for the cultures to feed on. The sugar is in the way. Your cheese will be very metallic, very cheddary, which you don't want.
Leighton will test the whey up to 20 times per vat between each step. He does it to monitor its temperature and those levels of lactic acid, which will give us a crumbly cheese. For a few hours, the day goes like this: cutting, testing, cutting, testing.
They're big, the curd itself is still quite delicate, and you can see underneath the pat, you can see the curds, the individual curds.
Yes, yeah, but they still stick together, even though...
It always wants to knit itself together.
Oh, I see, because they remember where they came from.
Once all the whey is drained, all that is left is salting the curd, cutting it again into very small pieces, placing it into molds, and pressing them. After it spends 24 hours in the press and in brine, we have a beautiful white canvas that is ready to turn into a Cornish yarg. The only people fit for the job are these ladies, the nettlers. Every year between May and July, they go out in the fields to carefully pick the stinging nettles that are used to wrap the cheese. This large quantity of nettles is kept frozen to freeze off the small needle-like structures that sting and cause a rash when they touch human skin.
So what we have to ensure is to make sure that this leaf is dipped, completely immersed 5 times.
Oh, 5 times?
Because you are actually washing it. And then with as you see, there's a furry side and there's a shiny side.
Yeah.
The shiny side goes against the cheese. Okay. So what you're trying to do is make that leaf stick on that cheese. And then with your brush, take your moisture out. And then what you do is you just cover the cheese.
All right, and do you have a specific pattern in mind when
yes,
you do it?
we do.
Oh,
yeah, we call it dragon's teeth, but you can see it's like up and down. So it's quite therapeutic.
That's true.
Mesmerising sometimes.
Yeah. So how many years have you been doing this?
This is my 15th.
Wow. So what would this nettles do to the actual cheese?
It gives a lovely earthy flavour. It completely surrounds the cheese, so it's giving it like a protective layer. It's very, very quirky. It's very unusual. No one else does it.
To see if I could create a Cornish yarg myself, I gave nettling a go.
Okay, so I pick it up from the
Pick
floor.
it up, keep it in your left hand.
Yeah.
Spread your fingers out like you're doing, and then submerge that 5 times.
3, 4, 5.
Okay, so then the shiny side, I would then pick it up with 2 hands. That's it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I would put that
The
on
shiny side.
on that corner. That's it.
Like here?
Yep.
All right. Well, it's holding its shape. I thought it was just
you're
disintegrating
doing.
my hand.
No, you're doing very
All right.
well. That's it. And then with that, you quite forcefully you can get the water out. That's it. So you're trying to make that leaf stick to the cheese.
Jenny told me that it's okay to leave little gaps between leaves when nettling. Why? Because the cultures that we added at the very start of the making process will form a natural mold once the cheese ages.
Can you see the pattern you're forming?
Yeah. It's not intentional.
You're doing very well.
How do you call it? Dragon?
Well, dragon's teeth, I'd call it.
Dragon's
But
teeth? Yeah.
it's just like that jagged effect.
This is more like a sheep's teeth, to be honest.
Sheep's teeth.
They're not.
A Cornish yarg matures for 21 days. It ages in cold maturing rooms with high humidity. The cold temperature preserves the cheese, but also the nettles, which will decompose very easily in a warm environment. The nettles themselves also help the cheese mature, giving it rigidity and firmness and creating a rind.
And the perfect rind is firm, but not soft.
It's dry, but not too dry. It's not crispy. It's a little bit moist, and then it's got this lovely environment for these white molds to develop. And so, you know, every cheese looks like a Christmas tree. So,
yeah, it does.
So you have one nettle meeting another nettle here. The white Candida mold is in the cheese, so at sort of 20 days, it's starting to break through and create this mold that then spreads its way. So this little bit here is where there's a gap in the nettles that the mold can poke through. And then finally, as the cheese matures, as these molds take a hold, that flavour starts permeating down through the cheese.
Catherine's Dairy is the only one in the world that makes this cheese, but the idea that nettle leaves enable cheese to mature is at least 400 years old, from the time when cheese was made at home. Back then, cheeses were placed on beds of nettles to favour the aging.
So we're looking at a little bit of maturing under the rind. You can see that the rind has softened under there, and then you've still got this sort of slightly crumbly core.
I was expecting the rind to be a bit thicker. Yeah.
Well, it's just one thin nettle leaf. It's very, very lactic. It's got a bit of a snap to it as you break it, and then as you get to the rind, it's slightly more elasticy and
that's
a little
true.
bit more.
Yeah. That's what.
So
let's see.
So very milky, slightly acid.
Yeah. God, I don't know. I'm just having some childhood memories. It really reminds me of something that I would have back home in Italy, like the same sort of texture, milky, and a bit lactic. Just everything you said, but with something different.
And you can taste that nettle, can't you?
Yeah.
You can taste the nettle. So the nettle's giving you a textural experience, but also is imparting flavour.
It's almost a bit lemony as well. Yeah, because it's fresh and there is that acidity. Maybe not a very acidic lemon, but something like, you know, an Amalfi lemon, you know, one of those sweeter ones. So there is something about
right.
it. Yeah.
And the other thing I think you get a bit of is yogurty.
Definitely.
But the older the cheese gets, the more likely you are to get some of those flavours coming through.
You will spot it in a crowd thanks to its circular shape, but the reason why you will forever remember this sausage is the taste. With a coarser, juicier texture than other sausages and a flavorful aroma from the generous amount of spices, Cumberland Sausages are favourite in the UK. But there are only 12 butchers in the country making the original traditional sausage that's been granted a protected status.
We're in Barrow-in-Furness, Cumbria, England. This county has been the home of Cumberland sausages for hundreds of years. And today we're going to learn more about the traditional method to make Cumberland sausages, a method that will take us back to the times of the British Empire. Let's go find out more.
To make traditional Cumberland sausages, butchers would have originally used a local breed, the Cumberland pig, which is now extinct. So now they use rare breeds, outdoor pigs, like today's British Lop.
And what you find is because they live longer, the flavour is in the meat, and with a little bit of spices and herbs, the sausage is fantastic. So here we have the half of the pig.
All right.
This is the shoulder. This is the middle and the belly, so we have the loin, which is the loin chops, and the belly pork, and then we have the leg. And we make a combination of the leg and the shoulder together. Because in the leg it's lean, and if you only just use the leg, you need a little bit of fat. So we need to combine the both.
All right.
And when we cut this, you will see that the combination is the best. So the knife skills in taking off the meat from the bone, they've got to separate any sinew and skin.
Okay.
Believe it or not, any skin like this in a commercial machine can be made into a paste and could end up in a sausage. We don't want that, and we haven't got the machine. So it's important that every little bit of sinew, bone, cartilage is removed, so we end up with really nice meat.
Yeah.
And depending on profit, we need as much meat from the bone as possible. otherwise he's a very bad butcher.
So okay. So this one has been skinned pretty well. Huh?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Once the meat is deboned and degristled, these are the chops that will later be turned into Cumberland sausages. Rather than going through a more commercial bowl chopper and being emulsified, the meat is thickly minced to retain solid, chunky pieces.
So those are nice, chunky pieces of mince that in a mouth texture would be really good.
Yeah, that's true. I can see the fat, but it's not as dominant as you would think.
We call that 80 VL. So 80 pieces are red, 20 pieces are white. It's called visual lean. We can see this.
Yeah, it's true. Because you never want to get rid of all the fat.
No.
You still need a bit to flavor.
But if you put too much fat in, then it fills up the pan, and that's no good.
And
your
it
sausage shrinks.
Yeah.
But with this, the sausage will stay the same.
It may sound obvious, but high meat content in a sausage is never a given. More commercial butchers will use bread or cereal, which is something Peter feels pretty strongly against. The bread or cereal will soak up some of that extra fat, which will in turn alter the structure and flavor of the sausage.
We want a high meat content sausage. We want a proper Cumberland sausage to be recognised because it's different. And so we applied to the European Union for protection of our regional sausage.
And that took
10 years.
10 years to be approved. So,
this is what they call bureaucracy, 10 years.
Now that we're all set on the importance of the meat, we are ready to learn more about another distinctive feature of a Cumberland sausage, its spices. These are added by hand before the whole mix is encased in the pig's natural intestine. So what sort of spices go into Cumberland sausages? What do we have here?
Here we've got salt and pepper, we've got a little bit of sage and nutmeg that are finely ground, we've got potato starch and rice flour.
Okay.
And this mixes the meat and the combination together. Then we've got some herbs, which is a little bit of sage. You could use a fresh sage, but with a dried sage, it gives it a little bit of better shelf life because it's nice and clean.
Yeah.
And then we've got the rusk, which is a pea starch.
Which is not bread, right?
Not bread, no. Now it's going a little bit dry, so we have to have a bit of water because all that has to come out of this nozzle.
This specific spice blend wasn't random. According to Peter, back in the 1800s, German slate miners moved to Cumbria for work and brought their sausage recipe with them. But instead of the spices they were used to, they used spices they could get locally, which weren't actually that local. Spices were being imported to Cumbria from the Caribbean, thanks to the port of Whitehaven, the second biggest port in the country at the time.
So there was always a little bit of spice. Sometimes you might even find ginger. But predominantly nutmeg, mace, pepper, and these were the spices that made the Cumberland sausage very different. If you were working hard in the slate mines and you wanted to have a nice strong sausage, the local spices were fantastic.
Wow.
But really, the real component was the meat.
Yeah. So
Now,
all together make something quite unique.
I take the intestine of the pig has been cleaned.
Okay, so this is the intestine, yeah?
Yeah, this is the intestine. And
Long.
basically, we put this onto the nozzle of the sausage machine.
All right.
And this is very important that we use a natural casing, a natural intestine, as opposed to the cowhide synthetic, which commercial sausage makers are now tending to use.
So it just gives you a better texture at the end of the.
Well,
and
exactly.
a better
When you
taste,
cook it, that natural texture, it isn't chewy or rubbery or plasticky like sometimes you find on some sausages.
Yeah. So how long is that? This is one intestine from one pig, no? Because it's continuous.
In Victorian times, it was 19 yards. Now it's 21 metres.
Okay, so now I know how long that is.
And that's interesting because as we've improved the commercial viability of our pigs. The intestine has got longer and probably the ability to absorb more food. It's just one of them things. But yeah, there is definitely 21 yards, 21 metres.
Oh, they have this
coil.
Yeah, this thing coil. And why is that?
Don't know.
No.
Probably because we couldn't tie knots.
Really?
Maybe it came with the Germans. Because
Maybe.
they make the rings of sausage.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, maybe they were making a sausage with a ring, you know, like a ring like the sausage. Sometimes in Germany you have the type of sausages. We don't know.
And it's quite pink, no?
That's a nice traditional Cumberland sausage. You can see the white bits, you can see the 80VL, you can see a little bit of the herbs.
You can see where the fat is, which also makes you realize that there's not that much of it.
Sometimes I think you see sausages in Italy like this, don't you?
Yeah, in my region we have one that's served like this that's called zampina.
Zampina?
Yeah, it means little pole.
Oh, right.
But it's served in a coil like this, yeah. And it's like the grilling sausage.
Once in a coil, a proper Cumberland sausage needs to be left overnight to let the spices and herbs blend into the meat. Peter grilled some from yesterday's production for us to taste.
Here, Claudia, have a taste of our sausage.
Thank you. Here you go.
Chef. got to remember the cameraman, then he gives you my best angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thickness is important, the coarse texture is important, but above all else, the taste in the mouth. Please.
Yeah. Cheers. The crack that you feel when you bite into the natural casing.
Natural casing, natural intestine.
Yeah.
You're also tasting meat.
Definitely.
That's prominent. A little bit of influence with the seasoning.
Pepper
A bit of pepper there, yeah. Obviously, a bit of nutmeg. Can you taste it?
Yeah, a bit of that as well.
And to be cooking this on the barbecue, on the grill, in the oven, fantastic.
Yeah, it's very good. It is. Yeah, you can taste the meat. Like it is quite meaty.
Claudia, if you own a Rolls Royce, you
wish.
wouldn't put cheap oil in the engine. Don't put bad food in your mouth. This is fantastic.
Yeah. So, how would you recommend eating this? I mean, apart from this way, like on a stick.
Traditionally, in the ring.
Ah.
A proper Cumberland sausage. A good meal. I mean, maybe a meal nowadays for two.
I'll eat that.
Depending on where you are in the world, you will find a different version of bacon. In the US, you will have a savory piece of pork belly that's been cured and smoked. As an Italian, my go-to bacon is pancetta, dry-cured dices of pork belly.
Here in England, your bacon will be a leaner but still juicy cut of meat from the back of the pig, cured to perfection. Today we're in South Cerney, Gloucestershire, and we're at the Butts farm, a farm that specializes in rare breeds. What we're going to see today is bacon made from Gloucestershire Old Spots. They're one of the oldest breeds here in the UK, and they're renowned for having a tender, marbled meat. So what better way to taste it than in the form of bacon?
Thank you. Hello, friend.
Compared to more commercial pigs that feed on high protein and cereal, an old spot follows a low protein diet, complemented with grass, worms, and whatever they can munch away at here at the farm.
The Gloucester Old Spots also have a lot of fat on them naturally. That's good. You don't have to eat the fat, but when you cook it, you've got the fat running through the meat, which gives you the flavour.
All right.
This is what we're going to be working with.
Yep.
This section is cut from the top of the leg to the fourth rib, and on the other side, the first flat bone across the thigh and the leg. Carl pierces the skin a few times to allow the salt to get right into the center of the bacon. He tells me that the best bacon is one that is cured within the first week after slaughtering the pig. This is to avoid tough skin, which the curing will make even tougher and will take all the moisture out of the meat. Drawing most of the moisture out is, however, our way to go with our dry cure today. Carl uses fine sea salt, which he prefers as it gets right into the meat much quicker than coarse salt.
So you want to get all the cure mix into the centre. When they're not having the nitrates in, it does take that little bit longer to cure. You want the salt to have contact first, because that will just give you the right way to cure.
Oh wow, that's quite a lot of salt.
It is. So
So how many kilos is that?
that's 5. For this much, you'd probably only need 2.5 kilos of salt. But it cures better if you just get that caked in salt.
All right.
And it doesn't really absorb more of it. It just seals. Just get nice and covered. So that provides the base of the cure. So that will instantly start drawing out the moisture, changing that product from pork into the bacon product.
Carl leaves a little bit of salt for later in the curing process. After a few days, the meat will be repacked with salt to drain the excess moisture that has come out. The next ingredient to be added is unrefined brown sugar. Just like salt, sugar will draw out moisture, but it will also add a light sweetness to the meat and get rid of the sharpness of the salt. Just like salt, a bit of sugar is saved for later. The cure continues with pink and black peppercorns, bay leaves and juniper berries. The berries will bring lightness and sweetness with the sugar to the edge of the bacon.
And lots of colour, which is good. It'd be nice to have a big pestle and mortar and look.
Yeah. So you're just gonna crush them.
Yes,
like
and gently just to get some of the powder out of the peppercorns.
Oh.
And the juniper berries are still slightly wet because they're a berry. As we break them, there's just a little moisture still. It's a little bit like making your gin and having the botanicals. It is like that. You can pick savoury and strong flavours in your botanicals. I've seen people do rosemary bacon and things like that.
Oh.
Just try and infuse different flavours in.
Yeah, you can just personalize it. Just a
I
little
think
bit.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to see people experiment too
much.
Well,
but,
it's up to them, I guess. But yeah, bay leaves act almost like a stability for the flavour.
Oh.
You just give them a little bit of a crush because they're fresh. They're
very nice green.
Not like the dry ones. So just give those a little rip. Nice having them grown on a
nice smell.
In the garden by one of our ladies in the office. I asked her for some bay leaves. She brought me half of her tree. So this is very good.
That looks fantastic already.
After 14 days and after removing the bones, this is the end result of our curing process.
So we've got the back bacon, and this is where it went from the shoulder. That's where we came in from the leg. So we generally take the back bacon off with a little tail. So a small amount of the streaky remains on the back bacon.
Yeah.
Just because that's the shape we normally use. Plus it gives that little bit of fat to cook with.
Yeah, for sure.
So you just separate that. Down like that. And that will give you your streaky and your back bacon.
Oh.
Butchers refer to dry cured, unsmoked bacon like this here as green bacon or greenback. This is nothing scary and is completely natural. It's just the salt slightly over-curing the edges of the bacon. A little trim and our Gloucestershire Old Spots bacon is ready to be revealed.
If we then look at the centre of the bacon, that's when you've got that
Oh, nice.
beautiful cure, nice flavour going through.
There's a bit of marbling as well.
Yeah, so where you've got the really nice native breeds and the finish is really good on Judy's pigs, it just starts to build up just a little bit of fat in the muscle, which then for cooking makes it amazing, just like it would a ribeye steak. The fat will always disintegrate first because it reacts to heat and reduces, so it just breaks the meat into parts. So your bacon is then quite tender, which is quite a nice way to do things.
And so that's the speciality of like Gloucestershire Sauce.
Yeah, definitely.
As you can find out.
Yeah, well, you get your pork chops and there's not just fat on the outside, you've got actually a nice bit of taste and a flavour going through it, which is really good.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's our traditionally dry cured nitrate-free bacon.
My first question is, why did you put this in the oven rather than frying it?
Well, because it's got so much of its own lovely fat, and we love fat around here. We love food around here, but we love fat as well.
Especially.
You don't need to fry it in oil or butter, and you wouldn't even need to turn it over, which is why it really suits cooking in the oven. Especially me as a farmer, you know, the animals can get up to it, and you know, I bung it in the oven, and I've got sort of 20-30 minutes to go and sort out any crisis that might be on the farm, and there you go, it's ready without having to do anything.
Okay, and this is the most like traditional way around here too.
It is the most traditional way. The tradition is that you cook your bacon, you fry your eggs in the fat, and then you do your fried bread in the fat from the bacon.
All right, so the bacon is the base for everything.
It's the base for everything, exactly, and that is your traditional breakfast.
All right, let's have a taste then.
Oh, let's have a go, shall we? How lovely.
Just like that. So why is it that back bacon is more popular in here?
I think really probably because you've got more meat to fat ratio.
Yeah.
You know, you've got all that lovely eye muscle, it's called there. The eye muscle you can relate to a pork chop on maybe loin, and then the nice bit of crispy fat. But
that's great.
If you don't love fat quite as much as I do, then maybe you have got a bit more meat there.
Yeah, but I like the taste of the meat as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
and this is a great compromise between the two.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it tastes of pork, doesn't it? It shouts pork.
Yeah.
You know what you're eating.
Yeah.
And you'll notice also that we're eating the rind. It's edible. And that is because it's what's called suppled first, and it's really just cured in a traditional way, and you can eat all of it.
Yeah,
the rind is not chewy.
No, not at all. I really like the fact that you can taste the fat, but there's also a bit of that, as Carl was saying, a little bit of that juniper berries.
Oh,
and,
definitely. Yeah.
So
no,
they add something to, the taste.
The one flavour complements the other. You're not getting a dominant flavour there really at all, are you?
That's lovely.
Yeah. It's really good, isn't it? Really good. Yum.
In the family of smelly cheeses, there are probably only a few that will really make you go, oh! Well, I have no doubt, for me, Stinking Bishop beats them all. Crowned the smelliest cheese in the UK, Stinking Bishop gets its distinctive smell thanks to perry, which is a pear cider used to wash the rind of the cheese. The result? A mouldy exterior, a squidgy texture, and an everlasting, pungent smell.
We're in the pear orchards of Dimmock, Gloucestershire, England, at the home of Stinking Bishop. It is from the fruits of these trees that the infamous perry cider is made. But while the perry gives the cheese its distinctive smell, I'm curious, will the cheese taste as strong as it smells? We're here to find out.
There is only one farm in the world that makes this cheese, Charles Martel & Son. And just like Stinking Bishop is a semi-soft cheese, its recipe is semi-secret. We know it starts with pasteurized cow's milk that is left in a vat for 4 hours with ferments and rennet. We also know that the rennet used is a vegetable rennet. This helps coagulate the milk without interfering with the flavor of the cheese, which an animal rennet will do. The milk comes from the local Gloucester cattle. The milk from this breed is particularly suited for cheese making because during the coagulation process, its cream doesn't rise to the surface and get lost within the whey. Rather, it stays down in the milk and it will make the final cheese much richer. When the curd has reached the size of a nut, it is transferred into molds. This is the first secret step of the process. At the end of the molding, this tower of empty molds that you see behind me will be full of curd. And after a certain amount of time, that is also secret, the cheeses will be moved to the maturing room.
Okay, this is the moment of truth. Let's see.
Smelly? Oh! Wow. Well, it's not as bad as I thought. It doesn't smell bad. It just has a strong smell, I think. Yeah, that's pungent.
Lots of people describe as old smelly socks.
Okay.
Which is a bit disgusting. But actually when you eat the cheese, it's really nice.
Yeah.
And you can't taste the smell, you can just taste the cheese, which is nice and smooth.
It fills up your nostrils and just stays there.
With that smell still very much up in my nostrils, Justina talks me through the most important step of the making of Stinking Bishop, washing it in perry. This is done when the cheese is 1 day old. Old enough to hold its shape, but young enough to absorb the flavors of the perry.
How often do you do this? How often do you wash it in perry?
Only once.
Only once?
Only once,
Oh,
yes.
and that's enough just to, make everything that the cheese is. All right.
Well, it's alcohol.
Yeah.
And also you can smell the aroma of the perry, so you don't want to have this too strong at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And this washing, is there a method to it, or is just, you caressing the cheese and enjoying the work?
Putting my love to
yesterday's
it.
work.
Yes.
The molds around the cheese are made of beechwood. You may ask, why? We don't know. That's another secret that the makers wouldn't share. My guess is that this helps the cheese keep its shape, of course, without being too rigid and thus allowing the cheese to retain some moisture. Like other semi-soft cheeses, and this we know for sure, Stinking Bishop wheels age for 2 to 3 weeks and they are turned regularly to ensure both sides mature equally.
So this is the finished cheese that still smells even though it's
Yes, the
it's
cheese
packaged.
always smells, yes. So this is the ready cheese.
Oh wow. Oh, that's quite... Oh, it's beautiful actually, no?
Yes,
It's it looks like one of those like eyeshadow palettes or something. But it has nice shades of yellow and red.
Yellow, red, yes, a bit of orange.
Yeah, it's kind
pink.
of sparkly, no?
Yes.
So all this is because of the washing in perry plus your secrets,
Yes, yes.
And I mean, is it a coincidence that the perry itself, it's kind of reddish?
Yeah, it's probably coming a bit from the perry itself.
So what's the deal with this perry? Well, around Gloucestershire there are over 100 varieties of perry pears, which are smaller than your average pear. I know, these are blossoms, but pears were not in season when we visited. Anyway, turning them into perry is quite a common thing here. The pear the Stinking Bishop baits in is called Stinking Bishop. Unlike what you might think, this pear doesn't stink.
Most perry pears are little hard things like that. If you threw somebody and hit them, it hurt because they're so heavy and dense, little tiny things. But the Stinking Bishop pear is more pear-shaped and more juicy. It makes a good early perry because it's got high sugar. It ferments very quickly, and so it's got a reputation of being a very strong pear.
All right.
Named after Mr. Bishop. Mr. Bishop was rather an unsavoury character, and so he earned the name Stinking Bishop.
All right. So that has nothing to do with actual
bishops. No.
Yeah.
But bishops love it. Lots of bishops give each other presents of Stinking Bishop because
it comes back. Yeah.
they think it's funny, and it is.
Jokes, secrets and smell aside, the story of Stinking Bishop is not really about making a cheese that will make headlines. Rather, it is about making something that could save its very source, the milk from Gloucester cattle, which risk disappearing.
Notice she got a black head and black legs, but her body's brown.
Okay.
That's a mark of the breed, and they've got this white stripe and a white tail.
Oh, okay. So all Gloucester cows have a white tail.
White tail, yeah,
Oh.
with a white streak and a white belly. Well, when I started here 50 years ago, there were 68 left in the world.
In the world?
And I thought, gosh, they can't be let to become extinct. How can I help them? I managed to get hold of 3, which I milked by hand. And I thought, I know, they're originally a cheese-making breed. We'll make cheese. It was my way of helping the breed survive. Not just by breeding them, but by using them. And that's the way they'll survive, if we use them.
Oh, thank you. So do you eat the rind?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that's where the most intense part of the flavour is.
Oh, all right. So they just have... Oh.
A bit cold.
I
It's
love
all right.
it. It's really nice.
Flavour's gone in, hasn't it?
Yeah, no smell at all.
No?
No, I mean...
Not supposed to say that.
No. You know, like when you
It's
say
not
you can taste the smell, because the smell can put you off. But this taste, I really love it. I don't know, it reminds me of some cheese I used to eat when I was a child. It's just the texture in your mouth. A bit creamy, but not too runny, so not too messy.
The flavour goes in from the rind, obviously, because on the rind is the culture, which is where you get the flavour.
Yeah.
The building where we're tasting the cheese is a distillery, and yes, you guessed it, this is where Perry is made. Charles tells me that his distillery is 400 years old. He even showed me some property documents from 1810.
Built in 1650, so it's the oldest original distilling house still working in the British Isles.
Oh,
yes.
Is it?
We know of no other older.
The pear cider or perry that is used to wash the rind of the cheese is later turned into the sweet pear spirit called poirot, which is made out of perry and fresh pear juice.
Cheers.
Can you say it in Italian? Cheers.
Salute.
Salute.
Sweet.
It's sweet, but not sugar sweet. That's
no.
pear
Yeah.
sweet.
Hello, today we're in the West Midlands of England in Worcestershire, the home of Lee and parents. We're going to see how they make their famous Worcestershire sauce. Today we're going to find out about its history and origin, what makes it so popular here in the UK, and then of course we're going to taste it.
Worcestershire sauce is a condiment made through a long-established maturing process with malt and spirit vinegar, molasses, red onions, garlic, anchovies, tamarind, and secret seasoning. The sauce can be enjoyed in a variety of ways, used to complement steaks, burgers, cocktails such as a Bloody Mary, and a British favourite, cheese on toast. But how did this famous sauce come into existence here in the West Midlands?
So Lee and Perrins is steeped in over 180 years of history. You know, the story starts in 1835 with Lord Sandys, who was reputedly a nobleman of this county, and he'd been travelling in the Far East and had picked up this recipe for a sauce, and he loved it so much he brought it back to Worcester and wanted it made up. He turned to a couple of entrepreneur chemists, Mr. Lee and Mr. Perrins, who owned a chemist shop in the centre of Worcester in Broad Street. So he gave them the recipe. Mr. Lee and Mr. Perrins got the ingredients from around the world and made up the sauce. And you know what? It tasted awful. Lord Sandys never returned, and Mr. Lee and Mr. Perrins put this mixture in the basement of their chemist shop and didn't return to it until a couple of years afterwards, when they tried it and it had matured into this wonderful elixir, and so started the kind of global fame of Lee and Perrins into what it is today.
After discovering their newfound popular sauce, the pair began selling it from their Broad Street chemist, which was quickly becoming popular with locals in the area. Lee and Perrins then relocated to a new factory in Worcester in 1897, where the sauce is still made today. Depending on your region, it will either be packaged in the iconic orange label or wrapped in a beige paper wrapper.
So at the site here in Worcester, we do mainly Lee and Perrins production in glass bottles. 70-80% of what we do is Lee and Perrins, so quite a lot of volume. And also we'll produce around about 43 million bottles a year. So depending on the bottle size that we're running at the time, we can run anything from 2.5 tonnes an hour up to 5 and 6 tonnes per hour in terms of production sauce.
Paul escorted us around the factory, showing us the making process. We started in the basement, where hundreds of barrels sit quietly maturing the Worcestershire sauce ingredients, just like it did over 100 years ago. Paul starts by showing us one of the 3 main ingredients that go into Lee & Perrins sauce: whole red onions.
So we got some red onions here that have been pickling for around about 9 to 10 months, and we've still got the whole red skin onion, which we noticed, but it's changed from being a very hard fruit, even though it's keeping its colour, to being a little bit mushy, and it's the process of breaking down the vegetable that creates this lovely juice that comes out that will give us that lovely flavour.
The same process is also done with whole garlic cloves, which also sit in a barrel of malt vinegar to pickle for 18 months. But one of the most interesting ingredients sitting in these barrels are anchovies, and there are lots of them. The fish, which are captured and sent from Spain, age in 200 kilograms of salt for 2 years, which help bring out the base flavor for the sauce. After the ingredients have finished maturing, they then go to the making house, where they are mixed together. The garlic, onions, anchovies and salt are added into this 5,000-litre tank. It then goes to the maturation storage area, where the ingredients are transferred and held in a larger 30,000-litre tank for a minimum of 6 weeks, adding more ingredients, including their secret spices, further enhancing the maturing process. Once complete, the sauce then goes to the final stage, where it gets pasteurized. The sauce first goes through this holding tank before heading to the heat exchanger, which preheats the sauce for around 2 minutes, then cools it again before sending it to bottling.
It's finally time to try the Worcestershire sauce. One thing to keep in mind is that this sauce is basically everything that I hate. I'm not a big fan of vinegar, anchovies, garlic, onions, and all these strong flavors. I think the winning point in here is that you don't taste the fish. I could never tell that there is fish in here. I can taste the vinegar and the garlic and the onions. You know, like if you compare this to like the standard vinegar that you have on the market, this will taste more like a balsamic vinegar because it has some sweet notes. I have made a very sad looking cheese on toast. So what we've done here is we put a little bit of the Lee & Perrins sauce just on top of the cheese before putting this onto the grill. Oh yeah, there is sauce in here. I think this one is a very good option. The sauce actually elevates it. So overall, not for me, but it's still a great sauce.
Today we're in the village of Cumberland Sausages in Nottinghamshire, England, to learn more about how blue Stilton cheese is made. Today we're going to learn about its history and origin, and I will also be getting my hands dirty in the process. And then of course we're going to taste it. This cheese can only be made in 6 dairies, which are spread across 3 counties here in England, which are Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire and Derbyshire. And today we're going to visit Cumberland Sausages dairy, which is one of the 6 dairies making Stilton cheese. Stilton cheese takes its name from the village of Stilton in the east of England. The earliest reports of cheese made and sold here date to the 17th century. In 1724, English writer Daniel Defoe referred to the town being famous for cheese, calling the product the English Parmesan. What contributed to its popularity was that Stilton was relatively close to London, only 70 miles away. The town was on the Great North Road. Built by the Romans, this road was the only link between London and Edinburgh before modern motorways took over. The road passed through villages and market towns filled with coaching inns. One of these was the Bell Inn, where a lady named Frances Powlett sold her cheese to travellers, and the word of her Stilton cheese quickly started to travel with them. And though she probably did not invent the cheese herself, she is responsible for expanding its popularity beyond the village.
That was her route to market. It was basically a wayfares for the carriages, so people would stop overnight, and a lot of the cheese was sold there and taken down into London by travellers.
As its popularity grew, Stilton cheese started to be made in the surrounding areas. Today, Stilton production has strict geographical borders and is confined to 3 counties in England. Ironically, as the village of Stilton falls outside of the county's borders, there can't be any cheese made in Stilton called Stilton. Colston Bassett Dairy was founded in 1913 as a cooperative to save excess milk from farms in the village from going to waste. Today, the dairy works with 4 farms that supply 4 million litres of milk a year.
Over the last 100 and something years, they've gone from making 3 months a year, probably making 50, 60 cheese a day, to making 7 days a week. And we are doing, in peak, about 180 cheese a day.
The farms send the milk to the dairy, where it is pasteurized.
What we do is we take the milk, we add a blue mold culture, start a culture to produce acidity, and then we add rennet, which will help us clot the milk and turn it into curd. Once we've set it and it looks like a giant jelly, a giant white jelly, we will cut the curd, release the moisture, and we'll drain that moisture off. Quite specific to us, all of our cheese will be hand ladled from vat to trolley, and that's just a transfer of curd from one large vessel to another. That will give us moisture release without losing too many fatty proteins to whey. Mechanised processes, large scale business, people who are transferring large volumes can and do lose fatty proteins to whey. We do, but just less because we're doing it by hand.
If you think that ladling is just about transferring the curds from one vat to another, think again. Billy showed me how to do it, and I had a go myself.
So the thing to remember is not to dig, keep it quite flat and just push it through.
And that's it?
Okay, so you also need to,
No.
it needs to all come down to the same depth.
Oh.
So you can't have some deep, some not. So it's exactly the same all the way down. Same here.
So I'm just gonna try one more for the road.
And that bit of cheese is now dead. You can let Craig have it and we'll get on with it.
Thank you. So you know when you say one day I'm going to quit everything and become a cheesemaker? Not an easy task, but you have to think it through.
So once we've ladled, we will then allow it to settle, and again more whey will come out, and then you will drain that whey, and once you start draining the whey, the bacteria that's in the curd will start to multiply and produce quite a high level of lactic acid overnight. And then the next morning we'll come in, and at a specific lactic acid point we will break the curds by milling so it's a uniform size. We'll hand salt the curds, hand mix the curds and form it up into a cheese hoop, as you see behind me.
The cheese is placed in a warm room to allow some of the moisture to evaporate. The cheese is turned every day, and when it's dry enough and can stand on its own, the mold is taken off.
We need to stop the aerobic mold growing at that stage, because if you make it grow too quickly with Stilton, it won't taste right because you're changing the pH too quickly. So we will take a knife and we will actually rub the outside of the cheese, and by rubbing the outside of the cheese we create a barrier so no oxygen can get inside, and we stop the mold growth at that, or the blue mold growth at that particular stage of production.
Then the wheels are turned every day. When they're 5 or 6 weeks old, they are pierced to allow oxygen in, which will activate the blue mold and produce the Stilton's characteristic blue veins. Then the cheese matures for another 5 weeks.
Put it on straight and then turn it. all the way around. Right, now gently bring it out.
So this one is almost ready, yeah?
Almost, not quite. I mean, the other end might not be quite so firm because they don't mature in uniform. So what we should see, it'll start the bloom process from the centre and work out. So we can tell, looking at that, it's not ready yet because it's not fully blued. But mind your finger when you're bringing it back out. So push it to the centre, stop, finger on. Now use your other hand.
Like that?
Finger on, usually your thumb. And have it up in the gap and then pull it out gently. And then just clean it so that that's covering the hole.
We've got a slice of freshly cut Stilton, so I'm so excited to give this a try. First thing that I want to point out about this is that it's not that smelly. You know how blue cheeses have this reputation for being so smelly. It's actually alright. Oh, it's so good. It just disappeared. It just melted like that. The texture is nice and crumbly. Even if this is some sort of hard cheese, so it's not that creamy, it actually is on your palate. It has some like sweet hints at the beginning when you first taste it, and then you're left with a bit of salty aftertaste, which is incredible. I mean, you know, you get two different flavors in one bite. It's so good. I'm gonna have another one. The sweetness of the blue veins, so good. And also if you get a mini piece without the blue, that in itself, it's marvelous. And again, the texture is incredible, so crumbly. And it's something that I haven't had with other blue cheeses. They are kind of gummy. This one is so nice, melts in your mouth, incredible.
Stilton is a registered trademark by the Stilton Cheesemakers Association, which was founded in 1936. The trademark protects the cheese in countries including the US, Canada, and Japan. Within the EU, the cheese was also granted the protected designation of origin in 1996.
Hello, today we're in Enfield in London to find out how traditional crumpets are made. And for those of you who don't know, crumpets are a very British thing. They are similar to toast, similar to pancakes, similar to bread, but they're neither bread, neither pancakes. So today we're at Warburton's, which is UK's largest crumpet producer. Imagine, in Enfield alone, they make 36,000 crumpets per hour.
British crumpets. So what are they exactly, and how did they become so popular within British cuisine? It is said that crumpets originated in the Anglo-Saxon period during 410 and 1066, and they were originally known as pikelets. They were small, hard, oval-shaped biscuits cooked on a griddle and had a pancake-like appearance. During the Victorian era, the recipe was altered to include yeast and bicarbonate soda to give them a soft, spongy look. What about its name? Its origins are unclear, but there are a few suggestions saying it may have come from a 14th century reference to a crumpet cake, which was a crumpled and curd up cake, and the Old English word crumpet, which also means crumpled.
Warburton's is a business. We were founded back in 1876 in Bolton, and over the last 140 years we have grown and grown from a local business to a regional business to now a national business to be the #1 bread brand in the UK. Within British culture, the crumpets played a really important part because it is a staple of a British diet effectively. We see it traditionally over the years. It's always been a breakfast accompaniment, so rather than toast people would have crumpets with jam, but we've seen that evolve as well, and over the years people now are starting eating crumpets with ham and cheese on top, and it's become more of a meal accompaniment. So the process of actually making a crumpet is quite complicated and technical, but very simple in its approach. So we take our raw material, so flour, water, yeast, a little bit of brine. But what we then do is we need to activate the yeast. So the mixing process will generate a bit of heat and start to get the batter warming up to around 40 degrees. At that point, the yeast starts to activate. And part of that process is that the yeast will start to consume the sugars that are present in flour. And as they're consuming the sugar, they're actually, as a byproduct, releasing carbon dioxide. That's the magic. We then take that and deposit it onto a hot plate. So the hot plate runs at about 200 degrees, and we deposit fixed amounts of batter into the rings. As the batter hits the hot plate, it will set the base of the crumpet. But as the heat then starts to go through the base, it starts to heat the water and boil the water, and the water turns to steam. And as the water and the crumpet and the heat's going through the batter, we're actually expanding the CO2 bubbles. So what happens then is as the bubbles expand and the steam is looking for the easiest way out, it's pushing the CO2 up through the batter. As that comes through the batter, it's actually setting the walls of the hole. So when the gas is released, that's how we form the holes in a crumpet.
The surfaces of the crumpets are then toasted for around 20 seconds to give them the finishing touch. What you may find interesting is that the crumpet doesn't need to be toasted at all, as Warburton's told us that it's solely for aesthetics, as the crumpets are already cooked. Once toasted, the crumpets then go on to be cooled in 3 separate rooms, each with varying temperatures. First starting at 18 degrees Celsius, 15 degrees and then 10 degrees. After being cooled, a system scans the crumpets, inspecting each one for their color, porosity and consistency in shape. The crumpets highlighted in this green border signify that they are good and ready for packaging. This row here, without the green border, this means that they're not quite up to the standards for Warburton's, so they're taken off the line. These custom-made robotics are capable of picking up 86 crumpets a minute, sending each one onto the final stage of the process, packaging.
So we got a packet of crumpets straight off the line. I'm actually very excited about this because despite having lived in the UK for more than 7 years now, I've actually never had a crumpet in my life. I know it's a disgrace, so I'm gonna make up for it and give it a try. It's nice. I love how it's very crusty in here. Like the bottom has a very, very strong and solid crust, and the top is like spongy, soft. I would say you almost get two flavors. You get the savory crust of the bottom side, and then like a more sweet taste of the spongy top side. It's very nice. I love how the butter is like completely disappeared into the holes, which means that when you bite into it, you actually get the buttery taste in there. The texture it's nice and spongy. It's cakey, and yeah, it's just a nice discovery for me. I wish I had known about crumpets before. Like, where were my British friends when I needed them? Guys, I had to know about this 7 years ago.
From a production perspective, when I look at crumpet plants, we've got 3 crumpet plants, and on average we produce 36,000 crumpets an hour, which equates to about 6,000 packets of 6-pack crumpets. So when you look across a week, that's equivalent to about 800,000 packets coming out of our Enfield site alone every week. So in order to make 800,000 packets of crumpets a year, we have to have a shift pattern that's robust enough to facilitate that. And we run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have four shifts that operate 12-hour shifts across the 7 days of the week. We only shut as a business on Christmas Day. So we are actually producing products 364 days of the year to make sure that our customers always get what they want.
Red Leicester is a raw milk, nutty, sweet cheese with a citrus finish. But no doubt what makes it stand out is its bright orangey red color. The cheese is actually deliberately turned this vibrant hue with a natural coloring called annatto. It doesn't contribute to the flavor of the cheese, so why is it added?
The story goes that Stilton and its blue veins were so popular that other cheeses, including Red Leicester, were having a hard time standing out. So cheesemakers thought, what can we do to make it more popular? Let's just turn it red, and it worked. Red Leicester is one of the most popular cheeses now in the UK.
So what is annatto specifically? Is it a colorant, but it's natural, right?
It's a natural colourant from a South American plant, and it's been used since the early 1800s.
Oh.
And farmers' wives would have used marigold flower colouring before that, or carotene. Yeah. It's a very deep colour, and it sticks to the fat protein, to the curd, to the fat protein matrix as it goes through the process. So as the whey goes out, it doesn't have much colour, but the curd does.
Does it stain?
Yeah, it does, yeah. And I normally manage to spill it everywhere, so they call me Annatto Dave.
Oh, it's fresh. Okay, well, no need to do nail polish. You can just dip your hands in annatto.
Do you want to pour it in? There we are. You got it?
Okay, what do I do?
Just pour. It doesn't make a pattern, write your name.
It's like a futuristic sort of painting or something like that.
It's a monster.
Yeah, it's like a tie-dye shirt.
Right, I'm going to switch the paddles on and then it'll make an even more wonderful pattern then.
Let's see.
When the milk has curdled, Izzy and Craig here are in charge of cutting the curds until they reach the size of a pea. The curds still look a bit white, as the annatto hasn't fully stuck to them yet and is still swimming in the whey. 1 hour later, the whey is drained to reveal some very yellow curds. They are cut and cut and cut into blocks, with the color getting brighter and brighter each time.
Oh my god, it's so yellow. It's like hurting my eyes a little bit.
You need sunglasses on.
Well, because you're like so close to it, and you know when you stare at the sun for a bit too long.
It needs to stand out.
Yeah.
The curds are then milled and salted. David uses this fork to evenly distribute the salt.
That piece is a garden fork.
Okay.
And we had somebody put a stainless steel scale on it. Could just take a little lump.
This one. Yeah, it's quite nice.
Just tastes salty now, doesn't it? Salty.
Yeah, just tastes salty.
And squeaky.
Salty and squeaky. Yeah, I know. Our American friends will know about this.
Each cheese is then molded and pressed into what will be a 10-kilo wheel. When the cheese is 2 days old, it is cloth-bound with lard, a traditional method that had been abandoned until very recently. A muslin cloth is dipped in a bain-marie of hot lard and then wrapped around the cheese. Lard does not add to the flavor of the cheese, but creates a seal around it, preventing it from drying out and preserving its moisture and citrus finish. It also protects the cheese from molds, which eat the lard instead of the cheese itself, keeping it humid.
Mould lives on the lard, and that slowly eats the lard away, and then that starts to, and then the cheese can dry as it matures.
There's a lot of lard there.
Just fold it out.
Yeah, that's not really, there's a bit of lard dripping, is okay.
So you pull that down. Yeah, perfect. Grab one of the edges.
Okay. This edge. Yep.
Okay. You'll be able to grab your hand underneath and flip it.
Whoa, because all this lard is very slippery. Okay, and then just
pop it down.
Woo!
There we go.
Perfect.
Red Leicester ages in a humid room from 6 months up to 14 months. Here you can see the mold building up and starting to do what David wants it to do, eat away the lard and leave the cheese intact. In fact, despite its moldy appearance, the cheese will have a nutty, sweet taste with a citrus finish. The lard stays on the cheese and is only removed when it is ready to be sold. Larding, as well as using raw milk to make red Leicester, were two traditions that had been lost. Like other cheeses in the UK, red Leicester suffered the rationing of World War II, and farms either stopped making it or abandoned traditional methods. It was David who brought this traditional recipe back after over 50 years.
Those colours on there are amazing.
It's quite a contrast with the orange. Yeah, you cannot do this job if you don't like cheese. Yeah, I like that. It is a bit crumbly, but it still holds its shape.
Yeah, but it's kind of meaty. We're looking for a meaty texture.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I really like this combination of textures. Actually, it has a nice sharp flavour.
Yeah, that's quite citrusy. That. So when you break a piece of red Leicester, it should just snap. There's little white specks, which are basically tiny little pockets of air.
Like eyes in the cheese.
Yeah.
That's what cheesemakers told me once.
Eyes in the cheese.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Leon and welcome to Scotland. We're in Loch Fyne to find out how Loch Fyne oysters are farmed and why they're so special. I'm also heading down to the local oyster bar to try and decide what the best way of serving them is. Down the hatch we go. Loch Fyne farms Pacific oysters, which can be found at various locations on the Scottish coast. Pacific oysters constitute 80% of the global oyster trade and were introduced to the UK in 1964 to replace low stocks of the British native oysters. The native variety can be more expensive and rare, but also riskier to consume. But if these oysters are harvested all around the world, including France, Australia and New Zealand, what makes Scottish ones so special? Local landowner Johnny Noble and marine biologist Andy Lane started the Loch Fyne oyster farm in 1978. Since then, they've grown it into a global business. They export internationally to Barbados, South Africa and Hong Kong, as well as stocking in prestigious London retailers. Their oysters were even served at Formula 1 and the Champions League finals. The Scottish lochs have cool weather in the spring for the start of harvest season in April. And this loch in particular is of Class A purity at least 6 months of the year.
Absolutely pristine conditions. It's what you're looking for. As you can see, there's no industry. There's maybe a couple of houses. So they're feeding on the best possible feed that you could want. The water that you're growing the oysters in, again, I can't stress enough at how good it is. In heavily populated areas, you run the risk of norovirus as well as other things in the water.
And safety here is paramount. Loch Fyne monitors the water here constantly for toxins, as do the local authorities. To eliminate viruses, each oyster undergoes a series of checks, starting the moment it arrives from the hatchery. The oysters are grown for up to 3 years in specialised baskets, which allow for movement and controlled exposure to the tide.
These are called SEPA baskets. When the tide comes in, that actually moves these baskets. That'll gently just knock off any excess growth that we've got in the oysters and give a better shape to the oyster and a better meat content to the oyster. And these trestles at the low tide mark, twice a day, no matter what the weather is, they are out of water and have got to keep themselves shut. That gives them a stronger muscle.
And this process also affects the experience of enjoying an oyster. By regulating their size to about 120 grams for the largest and 65 to 75 grams for the smallest, they can ensure the correct oysters go for cooking and the others are more appropriate for an enjoyable mouthful. The water also affects the flavour of the oyster. By growing the oyster in a loch with lower salt levels, you get a more pleasant salinity. Also, as they're grown in a loch and not open coastal waters, there's little disturbance on the seabed, which would otherwise make the oysters gritty. Any oysters imported from local producers need to de-stress after their journey. They're counted into bags of 100 to 150 from partner growers and placed in stillages by the waterside, before being taken into the grading shed, then the depuration shed. Tanks containing water from the lock have to be kept between 8 and 18 degrees Celsius to avoid the produce closing up. This is the depuration process, where the oysters are purified under UV light for a minimum of 42 hours to kill off any nasty bacteria. The tanks are then drained and the oysters are packaged. Loch Fyne prides itself on its produce's long shelf life. But how does the company ensure that each oyster is fresh?
So what we would do is, when we're packing the oysters, we'd pick up 2 oysters and we would tap them together. 2 oysters getting tapped together should sound like 2 stones getting tapped together. And what that means is you've got a good healthy oyster that is going to last. Now if an oyster's gaping like that, that means it's dead. Okay, it's not like mussels. With mussels you can give them a little tap and the mussel will shut back over again absolutely fine. If oysters gape, then that's them.
The nearby Loch Fyne oyster bar sells them for £2 or $2.44 each.
Just so good at our oysters. Our oysters are, I mean, I get them every day. 5 days a week, my oysters come in, sometimes 6 days a week. They're just from over there, across the loch, and you can tell how fresh they are.
But do they taste as good as they look?
I'm going to go for it without anything on it first, because I just really want to get a taste of what the oyster actually tastes like. It's actually really subtle. I think oysters I've had in the past have been quite slimy. This one definitely wasn't. They slide down the hatch, but you can chew them. There's definitely a texture to them. The oysters here are served with this onion vinegar, so I'm going to squeeze a bit of lemon and then have the onion vinegar one. I like anything that's pickled, so adding the vinegar element to the really salty oyster is actually really good. I have been brought this Tabasco. I'm not going to put any on here because I feel like these oysters don't need to be overpowered by the flavour of the Tabasco sauce.
So far, the fresh oyster with lemon is my favourite. But what are the cooked ones like?
We have one that has anchovy, smoked cheddar and some chili sauce. And then this is just garlic, cheese, breadcrumbs. This is so early in the morning to be eating oysters. I absolutely love anchovies. I've never had one on an oyster, so it works. The chili sauce is like a nice sweetness to it that probably you do need when you've got something that salty. Garlic, butter and breadcrumbs. It's like a little mini fish pie. That's exactly what it was like, a mini little fish pie. It was really nice. For me, the king, if you're gonna eat oysters, eat them fresh, eat them alive.
Loch Fyne exports nearly 35,000 oysters every week, just over 1.8 million a year. Production here might be at a comparatively smaller scale, but the business has won multiple awards for its taste and quality, including the Queen's Award for Excellence International Trade.
We have a group called the ASSG, which is the Association of Scottish Shellfish Growers, who meet every year, and we try and develop the industry every year. It's not a big industry at the moment, but the good thing about the industry is it's quality motivated, and just like ourselves here, it depends on local communities.